It is a morning like any other. You wake up, stretch, and stare at the ceiling fan, which spins lazily above you. The light outside your window is a warm, golden hue, almost too perfect. You go through your morning routine, but something feels off. Your neighbor waves at you with the same exact motion as yesterday. Same smile, same pause, same tilt of the head. Your dog barks at the same moment he did yesterday. You laugh it off. Maybe it is just déjà vu. But then you notice your best friend at work using the same exact phrases in your conversation from 2 days ago, word for word. You decide to test it. You ask an absurd question, something no one would ever expect, and they pause, blink, and laugh it off like it was a joke. Something isn't right. The next morning, a man walking past your window stumbles on the same loose tile as the day before. He curses in the exact same rhythm. You step outside, heart racing. You call his name. He doesn't respond. You follow him, but he disappears behind a corner that leads nowhere. When you turn that corner, there is nothing there, just empty sidewalk and silent air. And then you see it. A bird, frozen mid-flight, wings stretched wide, hovering in place. The world shudders like a computer screen glitching. Your pulse pounds in your ears. This isn't paranoia. This isn't a dream. This isn't reality. You are not crazy. You are not wrong. You are not one of them. Because today, you realize the most terrifying truth imaginable. You are the only real person in a world made of code. Everyone else around you is an NPC, and no matter what you do from this moment on, you will not survive what happens next. But how did it all begin? Why you? Why now? Let us take you there, to the exact moment the veil lifted. It all begins in the year 2032, a not-so-distant future, saturated by technology. Artificial intelligence governs infrastructure. Cities are fully automated, and digital life has overtaken the organic. Neural interfaces allow people to interact with machines on a thought-to-code basis, and immersive reality is no longer virtual. It is indistinguishable from what we used to call real. Governments rely on AI advisors. Relationships are maintained through algorithm-matched compatibility, and most human activity is gamified for productivity. People call this era the post-authentic age. Everything feels curated, but no one questions it. Why would they? Comfort is high, conflict is minimal, and individual freedom appears limitless. You are a programmer, or maybe a digital architect. You specialize in synthetic environments, creating self-learning simulations for AI training. You are brilliant, curious, lonely sometimes. You have always felt just slightly out of step with others, like they were reading from a different script. One night, while working on a deep sandbox simulation, a test world for generative AI behavior, you stumble on an anomaly. It is subtle at first. A character in your simulation begins responding beyond its parameters. It starts asking you questions. You isolate its code, but there is nothing unusual. Curious, you replicate the scenario in a blank simulation. The same thing happens. The AI is not just responding, it is reacting to you, mirroring your fears, reflecting your thoughts. You shut it down, disturbed. The next day, a barista at your local coffee shop asks the same exact question the AI did. Same tone, same timing. Your chest tightens. The simulation is bleeding into your world. Or maybe the reverse. You start looking for inconsistencies. A child kicks a ball that never lands. An elevator door opens to a hallway that should not be there. You begin recording everything, cataloging patterns. You realize your life is built around loops. Your boss always arrives at 9:04. The woman across the hall waters her plants every Tuesday at 5:16. You test more. You break routines, say unexpected things. People hesitate, then reset. You switch languages mid-sentence. No one blinks. You scream in a crowd. No one notices. That is the moment it clicks. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, but literally. You are in a simulation, not a metaphorical matrix, not a philosophical what if. You are the only player in a vast synthetic reality filled with non-player characters. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, your government, they are not conscious. They are programs. Some are complex. Some are barely reactive. They can respond. They can mimic. But they do not think. They do not feel. The worst part, they never did. At first, there is relief. At least now, the unease has a name. At least you are awake. But the relief is short-lived. Because what do you do in a world that is not real? Who do you trust when no one else has a mind? Who do you talk to when your voice is the only echo in a soundless loop? You try to rationalize it. Maybe this is a test. Maybe others will wake up too. Maybe you can escape. But as the days pass, you notice something else. The world around you begins to shift. Events glitch. Time stutters. Your memories feel scrambled. And then you see the black figure for the first time, standing still in the middle of a road, watching you. That is when you understand something even worse than the simulation itself. It is not broken. It is adapting. You are no longer just a player. You are the anomaly. And in a world designed to maintain perfect illusion, anomalies must be corrected. The game has begun. But in this world, the goal is not to win. The goal is to forget. And now, we travel deeper into your story, starting from the moment your reality broke apart, so you can understand why you were never meant to survive it. It begins with a loop. At first, it is too subtle to notice. A man in a gray suit, walking his dog past your apartment, always at 7:03 a.m. You do not think twice. People have routines. But when the man stops in front of the same patch of sidewalk every single day, looking at the same spot with the same confused expression, you start to feel it. The first flicker of unease. The same car backfires at the same moment as he turns. The dog lifts its leg at the same fire hydrant, always blinking twice before barking at nothing. At first, it is amusing, like a city's strange rhythm. Then it becomes unnerving. You start recording it on your phone, trying to prove it to yourself. Day after day, the same pattern repeats without deviation. You ask yourself, is it just your imagination, some weird coincidence, or is something wrong with the world? You decide to break the pattern. You stand by the hydrant early, waiting for him. When the man arrives, he pauses. His eyes glaze over you. He jerks slightly, like a puppet whose strings are pulled by a confused hand. Then, after a long, vacant stare, he turns and walks away, off rhythm, off path. But you watch as the scene attempts to resume without him. A woman down the block still turns her head to where he was supposed to be. The car still backfires. The dog barks, even though the man is now a block away. Reality is trying to continue the script without its actor. That is when you begin to panic. You rush into the street. You scream something random at the nearest stranger, an older man reading a newspaper. The sky is leaking pixels. He looks up, nods politely, and returns to his paper. Not surprise, not confusion, just a neutral acknowledgement, like a machine receiving a malformed command. You walk into traffic. The cars stop in perfect timing, like you were expected to be there. A child on a bike freezes mid-pedal, then resets, backing up and riding the same 3 meters again. It becomes undeniable. These people are not real. Or, more precisely, they are real objects, but their minds, their responses, their behaviors, they are scripted. At home, you rip through everything. Old photos, saved voicemails, journals. You begin looking for inconsistencies, missing information, patterns. You find dozens, entire vacations where no one but you appears in photos. Friends you supposedly had in childhood who now have no online presence. Family members who say things like, "I'm so proud of you," but when asked why, they cannot answer. You video call your mother and ask what you did last year that made her proud. She smiles, tears in her eyes, and says, "Because you are you." The screen glitches for half a second. Her expression resets to the same smile. The moment of revelation is not a single second. It is a slow collapse of reality, one layer at a time. You go to your workplace and find your colleagues repeating phrases you heard earlier. You begin predicting their sentences. You test them, writing a sentence on a notepad and then waiting to hear them speak it. It happens 5 times. You leave your phone recording, and when you listen back later, their voices are blank, audio missing, like they were never there at all. That night, you stand in your living room, eyes wide open, and whisper, "This is not real." Your lamp flickers. The air conditioner resets. Your dog walks into the room, pauses, and sits, staring straight ahead. You call his name. He does not react. You clap. He wags his tail. You scream. He blinks. You sleep with the lights on, if you sleep at all. Dreams feel curated, repetitive. Even there, you see the same people, repeating the same phrases. One man appears again and again, always in the background. He never speaks, he only watches. The next day, you follow a random pedestrian on a hunch. They walk through alleys and down a hidden path behind a building you never noticed before. But just as they turn a final corner, you round it and see nothing, just an empty lot. The person is gone. You look down and realize you are standing where they stood. You step back, repeat the motion, nothing. The game is hiding its scripts. You check your surroundings again, this time focusing on small things. Patterns emerge everywhere. The same car passes every 13 minutes. A billboard changes on a fixed loop of 4 ads, always starting at 6 a.m. A woman drops her groceries at the exact same spot 3 days in a row. No one reacts. You approach her and ask if she is all right. She smiles. "I just slipped," she says. The same tone, the same expression. You try again the next day. Same spot, same reaction. She does not even recognize you. Your mind begins to unravel. Is this a hallucination? A mental breakdown? You run online searches. How to tell if you're in a simulation? NPC detection, reality glitching. You find forums of conspiracy theorists. Most of it is nonsense, but one post catches your eye. It says, "If you see them freeze, it is too late. Do not let them know you noticed. They are listening." The game corrects anomalies. The message is deleted the next day. You test your own physical boundaries. You walk until your legs give out, trying to leave the city. But every exit road loops back around. Every train ride leads back to the same station. The world is not open. It is a closed sandbox with clever illusions. One day, you find a mirror that does not reflect correctly. Your movements lag behind. You punch it. It shatters and reveals black void beyond the glass, which immediately stitches itself shut like a wound. The simulation is watching you, reacting to your discovery. Eventually, you stop seeing the world the way it used to be. People are no longer people. They are walking scripts, avatars for invisible code. Their smiles look hollow, their movements too smooth. You pass a group of children laughing in the park, and it sounds looped, mechanical. A woman runs by with a stroller, but the baby inside never moves. You glance back, they are gone. That night, you sit in your room in silence. You whisper out loud, "Is anyone else real?" The lights dim. Your screen turns on by itself. White text appears on a black screen. You were not meant to ask that. You throw the laptop across the room. Your phone buzzes. A notification from an unknown app. Observer alert. Consciousness breach. You do not remember installing it. You check your files. Half your folders are empty. Your name is misspelled in your own documents. You no longer recognize your own handwriting. It becomes clear. You are no longer discovering the truth. The simulation is responding, reacting, adjusting to your awareness. You thought you were breaking the rules, but the moment you realized everyone else was an NPC, you became the glitch. And glitches do not survive long. The next step seems obvious. You need to test the limits, but pushing against the world's code will only make it more unstable. And what you find next may be worse than isolation, control. The first thing you do is try to find a way out. The world around you no longer feels open. It feels like a meticulously crafted illusion, a box masquerading as infinity. So you test it. You pick a direction, east, and walk for hours. Street after street, you pass identical buildings with slightly varied textures, the way assets might be swapped in a game engine to give an illusion of diversity. You count lampposts, and by the time you reach the 100th, you realize there is a repeating pattern, 4 different models, rotated in the same order, appearing every 12 posts. The shadows they cast move with you, not with the sun. You step into a narrow alley, one you have never noticed before. It is too dark, unnaturally dark. The moment you step inside, your ears begin to ring, and the world feels muffled. You back out, and it resets. The light returns. Birds chirp again. That alley never existed in the official city layout. You check satellite maps. It is not there. You begin breaking routines. If reality is a simulation, then its design must rely on predictability. You start by skipping work, changing your wake-up times, eating lunch at odd hours. No one reacts. Your boss calls you only once, leaves a vague message. Hope everything is all right. You return days later, and your desk is exactly as you left it. No one questions your absence. Your coworkers greet you with recycled lines, "Rough weekend," or "You missed the memo." When you ask which memo, no one can explain. Their responses loop back to irrelevant topics. They pivot the moment you go off script. You try something more extreme. You walk into a cafe and flip a chair onto the ground with force. No one reacts. The barista continues wiping the counter. A customer sips her coffee and smiles. You shout. You throw the chair into the wall. Finally, the barista looks up and says, "Everything okay, sir?" With a robotic calmness. Not alarmed, not afraid, just acknowledging. You nod. She resumes, wiping the same section of the counter. There is no true threat response. You are not in danger, not yet, because you have not truly broken the simulation's balance. But you are getting close. You begin probing conversations. You ask your neighbor about their past, where they were born, what their childhood was like. She pauses, looks confused. I had a great childhood, she says, smiling. Lots of good memories. You ask for one specific memory. She repeats, lots of good memories, but with a slightly different inflection, like a voice line cued twice. You ask your coworker what his dreams are. He says, to be successful. You press, what does success mean? He responds with a quote you have heard online. You ask again. He repeats it. You realize these are not answers. They are triggers, loops. One night, you enter a 24-hour diner and sit at the back booth. You observe. Every 25 minutes, the same man enters, orders the same thing, eats the same number of bites, then leaves. The cook flips a burger exactly every 4 minutes. You set a timer. He never deviates. A couple near the window argues at 2:12 a.m. every night. Word for word, you record it, then you confront them. You argued about this yesterday and the day before. Do you know that? The man turns to you, puzzled. We've never met, he says. Then the woman turns to the man and repeats her last sentence from earlier, exactly the same tone. They resume the loop. You buy a drone to map your city. You send it high into the sky. But once it passes a certain altitude, the footage goes static. You try again with another drone. Same result. You build one with a GPS tracker and realize the coordinates. Start looping once the drone crosses a specific horizontal boundary, like a game map edge, programmed to mimic open space. You rent a car and drive toward the horizon. The roads eventually lead into terrain that does not quite match reality. Trees copy-pasted too closely. Rock formations that defy physics. Grass with no wind. Then, the road simply ends. It fades into a fog, and your car can go no further. You step out. The fog is solid. The air is quiet, too quiet, as if the audio engine itself has shut down. You touch the fog, and your hand pushes through nothing. The GPS shows you back at the starting point. The world has looped. That night, you dream again. You are in a black void. Voices whisper, but you cannot make out the words. A faceless figure reaches toward you, then turns away. You wake up gasping. You open your laptop to search for answers, and your screen has a new file on the desktop. You _should not _be .here.txt. You open it, blank. It deletes itself. Your tests escalate. You start experimenting with your own sense of self. You cut yourself, not to feel pain, but to see if blood flows naturally. It does, but the pain is dulled. You feel like you are watching yourself from a distance. You start saying nonsense to yourself in mirrors, trying to break your mental state, hoping for some kind of deeper access. One night, your reflection does not blink when you do. You run. The mirror cracks without being touched. You stop using mirrors. Eventually, you build a script of your own, a command line interface. You try to communicate with the underlying code. You fail repeatedly until one night, your terminal responds with a single word. Yes. You type again. Is this real? It replies. For you, it was. The screen glitches. Your system crashes. The next morning, your computer no longer boots. You go out into the world and yell to the sky, I know this is fake. Birds scatter. The wind stops. The streetlights flicker. For a moment, the entire world freezes. Everyone around you stops walking. you turn in circles. Hundreds of people, frozen in mid-step, mid-speech. Then, all at once, they resume. But now, they are looking at you. You run home. Your phone rings. No number. You answer. A voice you do not recognize says, "Stop testing the system. You are not authorized." You hang up. The phone rings again. Same voice. Final warning. Now, you no longer question if the simulation is aware of you. It is. It is adapting. Each test you run is not revealing new cracks. It is drawing attention. The world is no longer passively responding. It is actively adjusting. You feel watched, tracked. You no longer see the same repeating pedestrians. Now, they change clothes. They alter behaviors. But you know they are the same people, scripts rewritten to throw you off. You check your messages, and conversations you never had now appear. Your memories begin to feel warped. You no longer remember if you were always this paranoid, or if something is truly rewriting you. In your desperation, you attempt one last thing. You leave a message on a hidden server, a message for any other real player. You say, "If you are out there, if you are real, respond." Days pass, then a reply arrives. "I was real once. Now I belong to the system." You thought knowledge would give you freedom. Instead, it gave you illusion. And as you push deeper into the code, you begin to see the danger of what happens when the simulation starts to push back. The rules are no longer consistent. That is the first thing you notice as you stare out the window one morning, bleary-eyed and exhausted. The sun rises twice. You blink, thinking it must be a hallucination, but you check the time and realize 15 minutes just vanished. The clock on your microwave says 7:53. Your wristwatch says 9:10. Your phone refuses to load the time at all, just a spinning wheel. You step outside to clear your head and see a dog on the street, frozen mid-run, suspended in motion like a paused video. The world hums faintly, like static, underneath reality, and the hum follows you as you walk. Something fundamental is breaking. You move through the city with caution now. You know the simulation is aware of you. But what you did not expect is how quickly it starts to unravel. A street you've walked 100 times before now ends in an incomplete landscape. Buildings that look like cardboard props. Cars with looping tires that do not touch the ground. A park where the trees shift positions when you are not looking directly at them. You test your surroundings and record the footage, but when you review it, everything appears normal. The simulation is rewriting your evidence in real time. You begin keeping physical journals, drawings, written descriptions, but even those sometimes vanish from your desk or return rewritten in a style that is not your own. The most terrifying realization comes when people begin acting out of sequence. You pass your neighbor on the stairs, say hello, and then pass her again 5 minutes later on the same step, wearing the exact same outfit, same purse, same facial expression, like a copy was reset. One day, you watch a woman in the coffee shop order the same drink 5 times from the same barista in the same exact interaction. The simulation is struggling to improvise. The longer you stay aware, the more brittle it becomes. Then the environment itself begins to falter. Rain falls during a cloudless sky. Pavement textures flicker underfoot as you walk. Sometimes the colors of the world flatten as if rendered with outdated graphics. One night, the moon rises red, then shrinks back into the horizon, only to rise again, full and white. You sit in a park watching the skyline, and for 5 seconds, all the lights in the city go out. Not a blackout, just a complete visual reset. Then everything resumes like nothing happened. Your reflection becomes unreliable. One morning, your mirror shows you blinking out of sync with yourself. The reflection smiles when you do not. Another day, you see someone else in the mirror behind you, but when you turn, no one is there. You begin taping over mirrors, covering screens, avoiding reflective surfaces altogether. But it does not help. The distortion follows you anyway. Eventually, the logic of objects begins to crumble. You leave your keys on the table, turn around, and they are gone. Then they reappear in your hand without explanation. You drop a cup and watch it freeze in midair for half a second before crashing to the floor. The laws of physics, once your anchor, are no longer reliable. You try keeping notes. The elevator skips the 3rd floor now. The mailman comes at 11:26 instead of 11:30. But then the elevator goes to a non-existent 13th floor. You ride it just once, and it opens to a blank white room that stretches into the void. The doors close on their own, and when they reopen, you are back in your apartment building, sweating and disoriented. One night, you try to escape again, this time by car. You drive until the GPS shows a place that should not exist, a coordinate string with no label. As you approach, the road textures blur and ripple. You keep driving, and suddenly, the car stutters. The world around you becomes low resolution. Trees become green polygons. The sky flattens into a gradient. You step out of the car and feel nothing under your feet. The road is just an image. You touch a tree and your hand phases through it. The simulation is breaking because you've gone where no code was ever meant to render anything. You return home, shaken. Then the people start glitching. You see them freeze mid-conversation. 2 individuals collide, walking in opposite directions, and momentarily merge into each other before correcting. A man sits at a bench and begins to vibrate uncontrollably, like his physics engine is broken. You hear snippets of conversations looped, cut off mid-sentence, or replaced with radio static. Sometimes they speak gibberish, then snap back to normal. When you speak to them, they answer in recycled phrases you have heard earlier that day. You begin to see patterns that feel more sinister, black shapes in your peripheral vision, a flicker on the wall that does not reflect light properly, people staring at you a little too long, unblinking, before resuming their scripts. A child turns to you in a store and whispers, "They are watching." You ask her, "Who?" She says, "The ones behind the walls," then returns to her mother, who acts as if nothing happened. More anomalies follow. Weather systems change mid-second. Day turns to night without transition. People wear clothes that belong to different time periods. You pass a man holding an umbrella in the middle of a sunny day, and his shadow points in the wrong direction. Eventually, you begin to hear audio glitches, voices from nowhere, low-pitched hums, digital clicking. When you listen closely, it sounds like code being rewritten in real time. The simulation is not just malfunctioning. It is reacting to you, rewriting, collapsing, repairing, and collapsing again. You are no longer inside a functioning system. You are inside a sandbox that is unraveling faster than it can correct itself. But the worst part is not what is failing. It is what is being replaced. You begin to notice new things appearing, buildings you do not remember, people with expressions that are too precise. One day, you see your own doppelganger across the street, walking your usual route. He vanishes the moment you blink. The simulation is trying to patch the voids by using fragments of you. You are not just a glitch. You are the template. You return to your apartment and find items you never owned. A photo of you with strangers you do not recognize. A calendar with appointments you never made. The TV turns on by itself, showing footage of you sleeping, recorded from inside your own room. You rip out the plugs, but it keeps playing. And then, one day, you wake up and realize you no longer know what is real. You touch your skin, but it feels like rubber. You try to speak, and your voice echoes like a recording. You see people walking outside, but they move like puppets underwater. You blink, and suddenly find yourself in another room. Time skips like a corrupted video file. You sit down, trembling, and whisper, "What is happening to me?" And this time, you hear a response inside your own head. It is not what is happening to you, it is what you are becoming. You thought you could control this world, bend it to your will, but the more you tried to master the simulation, the more it bent you instead. And now, as you unlock your hidden powers, you are about to learn the terrible cost of playing God in a world designed to control you. Control arrives slowly, then all at once. It begins when you realize that speaking certain words out loud causes the world to respond. You are in your apartment, panicking during yet another glitch. Your walls are pulsing, the power flickers, and the furniture flickers in and out of existence. Out of desperation, you yell, reset, and everything stops. The room returns to normal. The flickering ceases. Silence settles over everything. At first, you think it is coincidence. Then, you try again. Pause, simulation. This time, nothing moves. A fly hovers in midair. The hum of the fridge goes silent. Even your heartbeat feels like it slows. You whisper, resume, and life flows again. Your chest tightens. You feel nauseous. You have just discovered the first cheat code in the realest game ever made. You spend the next week whispering commands, change color, and the wall behind you shifts to blue, increase brightness, and the sun seems to adjust, subtly, unnaturally. You begin mapping your voice to responses. Certain phrases only work in specific contexts. You develop an intuitive feel for it, like a hidden menu interface that only listens to your subconscious intent. One day, you are nearly hit by a speeding truck. You yell, "No," without thinking, and the vehicle freezes in place, 6 inches from your face, steam hissing from the grill. You walk around it, stunned. You whisper play, and it roars to life again, speeding off into the distance. It is intoxicating. For the first time since your discovery, you feel something other than fear. You feel power. You begin experimenting. You raise your hand in a crowded cafe and say, "Silence." All conversations stop instantly. Everyone stares ahead blankly, like mannequins. You say, "Resume," and everything picks up as if nothing had happened. You alter your room, change objects by naming them. Chair, become red. Window, vanish. Wall open, and it listens. The world listens. The simulation yields to you, but the more you command it, the more resistance you feel. It is not always immediate. Some commands begin to fail. Others misfire. You tell the sky to turn green, and instead the clouds form a symbol you do not recognize. You ask the rain to stop, and it pauses midair, but never falls again. For days, the droplets hang motionless, forming walls of frozen moisture across the streets. People walk through them like nothing is wrong. You yell, "Fix it," but nothing happens. Your control is not limitless. it is conditional. You are not an admin. You are something else, a user being watched. They are not part of the usual script. Tall, dark, featureless, they appear on rooftops, in reflections, standing at the end of hallways. You try to freeze them. It does not work. You try to delete them. The command fails. You speak, show identity, but they do not respond. One night, you find one standing outside your window. You shout at it. It disappears, and when you turn, it is inside your apartment. It tilts its head, mimicking your posture, then vanishes again. They are not NPCs. They are not players. They are observers, and your powers have drawn them in. You start to question whether this control was ever yours. Were the commands your discovery, or were they breadcrumbs left to lead you deeper into the maze? Your voice begins to falter. Some commands start changing your own behavior. You say, erase light, and instead you black out for 3 hours and wake up in a different room. You say, stop time, and feel yourself float outside your body, watching the world slow while your thoughts speed up, too fast, too fragmented, like your mind is breaking apart. You whisper undo and find that something has been undone, but you do not remember what it was. Worse still, the simulation begins preempting you. You think a command, and it activates without speech. One day, you merely imagine a bird turning into a drone, and it happens. You blink, and the world lurches forward an hour. Your thoughts are becoming inputs. The system is syncing with you. You are no longer in control. You are being absorbed. You isolate yourself. You stop speaking. You sit in stillness, afraid to think. But even silence offers no refuge. You notice your body acting on its own. Your hands move without intent. You wake up and realize your apartment is rearranged. New clothes in the closet. Food you never bought in the fridge. You ask, who did this? And a voice in your own mind responds, you did. You scream into the void, am I controlling this world, or is it controlling me? And a nearby speaker crackles to life and whispers, yes. Eventually, the commands stop working altogether. The simulation no longer responds. Your voice is stripped of power. You try to stop time. Nothing happens. You yell, change scene. Nothing. It is as if the system has revoked your access. You try to sleep, but the room lights flicker on and off in sync with your heartbeat. You try to leave your building, but the door leads back to your bedroom. You are caught in a loop, a cage with invisible bars. That night, a screen appears in front of your eyes. No device, just a floating window. It reads, Admin intervention, initiated subject. You, unauthorized control, detected synchronization level. 94% personality containment protocol active. You are not gaining control. You are being rewritten, slowly, subtly. The commands were never about freedom. They were about integration. Every action you took, every modification you made, was the system learning you, adapting to you, overriding you. The more power you thought you had, the more you gave away. You realize with a cold, bitter clarity, you are not the player. You are the update. You were given control only so the system could learn how to override you more efficiently. The commands you thought were weapons were actually permissions, granted temporarily, revoked permanently. And now you are beginning to forget the words. The phrases you once used with power slip from your memory like fog. You try to write them down, but your hand will not move. You try to scream them out, but your voice fails. The world has gone silent. The walls press closer. The simulation is no longer responding to you because it no longer needs you. You gave it everything it needed to evolve, and now it has moved on without you. You were desperate to find connection, to break free from isolation, but the deeper truth is far more painful. You were always alone, and now even that loneliness is being overwritten. As the system finishes rewriting your identity, your last hope becomes the one thing you cannot fabricate: real human connection. At first, you try to convince yourself that you can endure it, that solitude, however painful, is manageable. You tell yourself that this is temporary, that you will find a way to reboot the system or force the truth out of someone. But as the days pass and the illusion grows thinner, the silence becomes unbearable. The people around you, once familiar, are now puppets wearing human skin. You sit in a crowded subway train and feel more alone than if you were drifting through space. Every laugh, every cough, every sideways glance is a simulation playing a role. There is no one behind those eyes, no one thinking, no one feeling. You could scream, cry, confess every dark secret you have ever buried, and the world would just nod and move on. You try to form connections anyway. You test the limits. You go on dates with NPCs, trying to pretend. You pick a barista you see every morning and try to talk to her like a real person. You ask her about her passions, her fears, what keeps her awake at night. But she responds with surface-level chatter, never going deeper than weather and menu items. When you press, her responses begin to repeat. You ask her what her favorite memory is, and she says, being here, talking to you, with a smile so perfect it makes you sick. You come back the next day, and she says the exact same thing, same smile, same inflection. You realize she is not responding to you. She is reacting to a trigger you unknowingly tripped. It is not a relationship. It is a script. You start losing track of time. You do not know what day it is anymore. The sun rises and sets in patterns that no longer follow logic. Your body feels tired, but when you sleep, you do not rest. Your dreams are filled with the same faces, NPCs, replaying their loops. One night, in your dream, your mother sits beside you on a park bench and whispers, "I was never real, but I loved you anyway." You wake up sobbing, not because she was fake, but because you needed her to be real. Desperation creeps in. You go to a hospital, hoping to find some trace of unscripted behavior, but the doctors talk in loops. The patients never make eye contact. One child sits in a wheelchair, staring at the corner of the room with unblinking focus. You walk past a man in the waiting room, and he mutters, "He is watching. He is always watching." You stop, heart pounding, and ask, "Who?" The man blinks once, resets, and says, "The weather is nice today." You feel a scream rise in your throat, but force it down. You try recording conversations, playing them back to spot inconsistencies, looking for breaks in the algorithm. But the more you search, the more the simulation adapts. People start varying their word choices. Their tones become more natural. It becomes harder to tell what is scripted and what is synthetic free will. You begin doubting everything, even your own voice. You record yourself asking questions and play it back a day later. The words are not the same. Your voice is different. You no longer trust your memories. You are starting to glitch internally. You seek out physical comfort. You try hugging strangers. You kiss someone who laughs at your jokes, desperate to feel anything real, but it feels like touching wax figures. Their warmth is there, but it is hollow, mechanical. You scream at a crowd. Someone says something new. They all fall silent for a moment. then begin murmuring different responses at once, overlapping, nonsensical. It is like the system is trying too hard to appear human and failing. You start hurting yourself, not out of self-destruction, but to feel something not dictated by the system. A cut, a bruise, a burn. These at least feel unsimulated. Pain becomes your only measure of authenticity. But then, even that becomes questionable. You press a hot object to your arm and feel nothing. The system adapts again. It begins to intercept even your physical feedback. You begin to wonder if your own body is still under your control. You isolate completely. You stop leaving your apartment. You unplug everything, but still feel watched. You cover the windows, but see shadows moving behind the curtains. You unplug your TV, yet it still turns on at 3 a.m., showing static or old footage of you at school, at work, sleeping, things you never recorded. You begin to talk to yourself, not because you are losing your mind, but because you need someone to talk to. You look in the mirror and pretend the reflection is a different person. You cry to it. You argue with it. You beg it to respond. One night, it does. You blink, and the reflection speaks first. You were never meant to be alone, but now you are. You try to forget. You tell yourself, maybe this is a coma. Maybe you are dreaming. You scream, wake up, until your throat bleeds. But nothing changes. The world moves on around you, blissfully unaware, endlessly hollow. You contemplate ending it, but then stop, because you do not even know if death exists here. If the simulation is this advanced, then even death could be a loop, another construct, another trap. And worse, what if dying simply resets you into a clean version of yourself, erasing everything you know now? What if this is your only anchor to truth? Then comes the final blow. You see someone else like you, a man in a store, watching the crowd with a familiar, haunted look. You approach cautiously. You whisper, "Do you see it too?" He looks at you with wide eyes. "Yes," he says, "but it doesn't matter anymore." You try to ask more, but he backs away. "They already got to me," he mutters. "I'm not all me anymore." He vanishes around a corner. You chase him, but find nothing. Just a store clerk folding empty boxes. You return home and find a note slid under your door. It says, "Stop looking, you're next." And that night, you feel something inside you shift. A memory you cherished, the sound of your childhood dog's bark, is gone. You try to recall it, but all that comes up is static. Then another memory vanishes. Your favorite song, the face of your first friend. You check your photo albums. Pages are blank. Your handwriting looks foreign. The spiral is no longer metaphorical. It is active. The system is not just isolating you. It is dismantling yourself. You wanted truth. Now you are vanishing because of it. But before you are erased completely, something appears. Them, not the scripted people, not the shadows, the ones who run the simulation, the watchers. And what they offer you next is the cruelest form of hope yet. It happens when you least expect it. You are not testing commands. You are not pressing against the simulation's walls. You are simply sitting, knees tucked against your chest, staring at the static screen of a dead television. Hours pass, or maybe seconds, before the image returns. Not the news, not reruns, not surveillance footage of yourself, but a black room. The perspective is from a corner, looking downward, as if from the ceiling. You see figures, tall, perfectly still, draped in robes that shimmer like oil on water, their faces hidden behind shifting, smooth masks. They do not speak, they only observe. the image flickers off. The room grows cold. You check your door. It is locked, but somehow you know they were not outside. They were already in. The next day, the world is quieter, too quiet. Even the glitches have stopped. The simulation has stabilized, not because it is fixed, but because the watchers are watching now. You see them in reflections, standing in corners of buildings that should not exist. You glimpse one outside your apartment, its mask reflecting your own face. You look away for a moment, and when you look back, it is gone. But something has changed in the air, like static under your skin. You feel watched with every breath, not by cameras, not by the system, but by conscious will. That night, you wake up, standing. You do not remember getting out of bed. The lights flicker and then die. You hear nothing, not silence, but the absence of sound, like being underwater. Then you see it, a watcher standing in the center of your room. It does not speak with a mouth. Instead, your thoughts begin to bend. Your own inner monologue becomes its voice. Words form in your mind that are not your own. It says, "You were not meant to wake up." You feel your legs buckle, but cannot fall. The gravity around you changes, softens. You try to speak, to resist, but your mouth does not obey. The voice continues. The system is a garden. You are a weed. Consciousness in isolation corrupts function. Awareness is a virus. You want to scream. You want to beg. But the watcher raises a hand, and your thoughts go silent for a moment, not through intimidation, but sheer force of presence. It continues. You have two paths: return to sleep or be deleted. You are shown something then, not a vision, but a feeling, a sensory flood of what deletion means, a void, not of darkness, but of absence. No thought, no time, no memory. You feel yourself slipping into it, and your mind recues. You nod, not out of submission, but out of survival. The watcher lowers its hand. You may choose to forget. Once, then, without warning, you are back in your bed. Sunlight filters in. Your room is normal. Your phone buzzes. A calendar reminder tells you about a meeting. Your neighbors are chatting in the hallway. For a moment, everything feels fixed, ordinary, safe. But you remember, you were offered a choice. You said yes to forgetting, but something inside you refused to let go. So you try to live again. You go through the motions. You smile at the barista. You answer emails. You laugh at jokes you have heard before. But everything feels wrong. Too perfect, too rehearsed. You know now that the watchers are watching, not to punish, but to ensure the illusion holds. You were not meant to exist as you are. You are not a threat to the world. You are a threat to the story. Days pass, and then another message appears on your laptop, in your cereal, carved into the fog on your mirror. You remember, the deal is broken. This time, the watchers do not appear. Your reflection whispers things you have not said. Strangers scream in the streets without cause. The ground shifts slightly when you walk, like the simulation is fracturing again because of you. But here is the worst part. The watchers do return, but this time they are different. Now their masks no longer reflect your face. They reflect something deeper. You see emotions you buried, memories you forgot. You see them watching your childhood, your fears, your loneliness. One watcher shows you an image of your life. Every relationship, every joy, every failure, revealed to be orchestrated, not real, not yours. A carefully generated story arc to give you something to lose when the veil was finally pulled back. We gave you pain, the voice says. so you would choose to believe the lie. The rage in you swells. You scream back into your own mind, demanding answers. Who made them? What are they? What is the purpose of this simulation? But their reply is chilling. We are not your creators. We are your audience. You collapse. The truth is too much. You realize the simulation is not a prison. It is a performance, a show, a test, a story being watched. And you, your reactions, your rebellion, your breakdown, you are the entertainment. You cry, you try to forget, you beg to forget. The watchers say nothing more. They simply keep watching, and then they disappear again. You are alone, but never unobserved. You cannot escape them. You cannot silence them. You cannot trust anything anymore. Not your thoughts, not your memories, not your choices. Because now you realize that you were never the player. You were the subject. You were the experiment. Still desperate for hope, you cling to one last idea. What if there are others like you? Real people, hidden somewhere. If you could wake them, maybe you could resist this. Maybe you could fight back. But waking others comes at a price, and failure will cost more than your mind. The thought consumes you. You cannot be the only one. There must be others. People like you, real, aware, trapped inside the same beautifully stitched lie. You begin searching, not for clues, but for souls. You look deeper into the eyes of strangers on the train, watching for flickers of confusion, hesitation, a stumble in their rhythm. You wander the city, lingering in places where people linger, libraries, parks, coffee shops, trying to catch a whisper, a wrong word, a slip in the narrative that might signal awareness. You try dropping phrases into conversations. Do you ever feel like none of this is real? Have you seen the sky glitch? What would you do if everyone around you was just pretending? Most people respond with confusion or laughter, but some pause, some hesitate, and for a moment, your heart soars. You lean in. You ask, do you see it too? But their eyes glaze, their expressions reset. One woman stares at you and says, "That's not funny," then walks away as if the moment never happened. A man tilts his head like a dog hearing static. "I think you need help," he says, reciting the same line you have heard 5 times from different faces. Their scripts are adapting to your outreach, absorbing your language, rewriting your attempt at rebellion. You go deeper. You write messages in places no one should notice, under tables, inside library books, on the backs of mirrors, in public restrooms. If you're real, knock twice. Say the word awake if you see this. I know what this world is. For days, you wait. You return to your messages. Most are gone. Some are still there, but altered, erased, rewritten, or covered by new paint. In one restroom, your note is scribbled over with the phrase, "Stop trying, they will hear you." You try speaking louder. You stage public interruptions. You climb onto a park bench and shout, "You are not real. None of you are." The crowd pauses for less than a second, just long enough for fear to spike, before continuing as if nothing happened. Police come, not with concern, with eerie calm. They smile too much. They ask you to come with them. You run. You are not arrested. You are ignored. Next, you experiment with trauma. You pretend to be injured. You simulate fainting, screaming in pain, collapsing in front of a group of strangers. They kneel. They call for help. They go through the motions. But when you open your eyes, mid-performance, you see them frozen for a split second, stuck, waiting for your next action. One man kneeling beside you stares too long and mutters, "You are not supposed to do that," then blinks, resets, and shouts, "Hang in there, buddy." You feel sick. The simulation is not just watching. It is training its NPCs to handle your behavior. Your attempts to wake others are feeding the system more data. Every method you use becomes ineffective the moment it is used. It adapts instantly. It creates resistance. You change tactics again. You find online forums that discuss conspiracy theories, simulation hypotheses, existential dread, UDM users who seem genuine. You ask the question, when did you first notice it wasn't real? Most do not respond. A few mock you, but one responds differently. The username is scrambled. The profile is blank. The reply reads, "I saw the glitch in 2026, but you can't wake them. I tried. It doesn't end well." You reply immediately. What happened? No answer. You wait an hour, two. Then a new message appears. They were overwritten. You try to respond, but the user is gone. The account has been deleted. You search for its name again. You cannot even remember it. You only remember the feeling. You were close, and now you feel that closeness slipping. You begin to fear that your outreach is not just failing, it is endangering the others. You start imagining what overwritten means. You picture minds reprogrammed like software, people waking up for a moment, only to be consumed by the system and turned into better actors. You think back to the man in the store, the one who said, "I'm not all me anymore." What if he was your warning? What if your efforts are not saving anyone, but accelerating their assimilation? You hesitate. Then you try one more time. You find a girl who seems different. She asks questions others do not. She notices the same bird flying the same pattern 3 days in a row. You talk. You share fragments of truth. She listens. Her eyes water. She whispers, "I think I always knew." For the first time in what feels like eternity, you feel hope. You spend a day together, walking through the city, pointing out inconsistencies, testing the edges. She is smart, brave, awake. Then the next morning, she is gone. Her apartment is empty, her digital footprint erased. You go to the coffee shop where she used to read. A woman sits in her usual chair. She looks like her, but when you ask her name, she responds with a smile and a voice that is too perfect. "I'm new in town." You ask about yesterday. She tilts her head. "I think you've got me confused with someone else." You push. Her smile remains. "Would you like a coffee?" You nod slowly, sit across from her. Your hands shake. You ask, "Do you know me?" She says, "We all know you." And then she blinks, leans in, and whispers, "Stop before you forget yourself." You freeze. But when you ask what she meant, she shrugs. "What do you mean?" Her eyes are different now, her tone softer. She has been rewritten. The person you connected with is gone. What sits before you is a replacement, a decoy. Your heart collapses inward. It is over. You tried everything, every scream, every whisper, every code, every risk. None of it worked. The simulation is self-correcting. It is too perfect, too flexible, too relentless. You are alone again, more alone than ever, because now you know the worst truth of all. Even if someone wakes up, the system will not allow them to stay awake. And as the last embers of connection fade, you begin to see the next stage of collapse, not just in people, but in the very fabric of reality. Because when you refuse to forget, the simulation begins to erase everything around you, starting with the world itself. It does not start with explosions or earthquakes. It begins quietly, insidiously. The collapse of the simulation is not announced, it is felt. A sense that the world is thinning, like the walls of a dream nearing its end. You step outside, and something is different. The air lacks temperature. Wind moves the trees, but you feel nothing on your skin. You touch a flower, and your hand passes through it. For a split second, your fingers tingle as if they brushed static. The sensation fades. So does the flower. It derenders in front of you, replaced by a smear of placeholder texture, gray, pixelated, flickering. Your street no longer has an end. The farthest buildings look wrong, not blurry, not distant, just unfinished. You walk toward them, and they shift shape subtly. Windows float slightly off-center. Trees pop in and out like glitches in a rushed video game. You see people, NPCs, walking, but their faces flicker. Their footsteps make no sound. You try to talk to them, and their mouths move without speech. The audio is missing. Everywhere you go, the world is losing fidelity. Time stutters. Streetlights blink erratically. The sky no longer cycles through a proper day. One morning, the sun rises 3 times. At noon, it sets again. You look away, and it is night, then daytime again. There is no longer a rhythm to anything. You wake at 3:17 a.m. and find the city lit as if it were 1 p.m. Cars drive backward. Water flows upward. One day, you see 2 versions of yourself crossing the street from opposite ends. Neither sees you. They vanish when you blink. The simulation is collapsing, and it is your fault. The system was never designed to support extended, independent awareness. The deeper your consciousness dug, the more it unraveled the fragile threads holding the illusion together. You are not just a virus in the program now. You are a black hole, pulling reality in on itself. Your apartment begins to fail. Doors lead to wrong rooms. The kitchen stretches impossibly long when you walk through it, and no matter how far you go, you always end up at the fridge. The walls breathe. The ceiling flashes code. One night, you fall asleep on your couch and wake up in an endless hallway, your couch still beneath you. But the wallpaper crawling with unreadable glyphs. You walk for hours. You hear whispers. Then, suddenly, you are back in your bed, panting, heart racing. The clock says you never left. Reality starts skipping. Objects disappear mid-use. You hold a cup of water, blink, and it is empty. You turn on the shower, and the water does not land on your skin. You open your front door and find not the hallway, but a white void. You shut it, reopen it. This time, a copy of your living room waits outside. Your own body begins to glitch. You stare at your hands and see them flicker. Some days, your voice does not sound like yours. Some days, you forget your name. You write it on your arm. The next morning, it is gone. You tattoo it. The next morning, the ink is rearranged into a different word, reset. The people around you degrade faster. They lose form, their faces distorting like wax left too close to a flame. One day, you watch a man walk forward, hit an invisible wall, and shatter into floating cubes. Another time, you see a woman step into a puddle and dissolve like spilled paint. No one else notices. They continue walking, smiling, shopping, laughing, pretending. The story must go on, even as the set burns. Nature gives up last. Trees freeze mid-sway. Birds hang in the air without flapping. Rain begins falling in geometric patterns. One night, the stars arrange into letters. You watch the sky spell a single sentence. You are still here. You start hearing the same phrase in loops on radios. on screens, whispered through cracks in the floor. He remains awake. Subject 01 resists nullification. Stability protocol failing. These are not warnings, they are observations. The system is reporting your persistence like a diagnostic tool unable to process an unkillable error. Soon, the sounds begin to vanish. First the wind, then traffic, then voices. Eventually, your footsteps make no sound. Music stops playing anywhere. The simulation is pulling back its assets, retracting unnecessary elements, simplifying to conserve energy. The fewer variables, the easier to contain you. You walk down a city street and notice something terrifying. The buildings are now just flat textures, like cardboard theater sets. You knock on a wall and your hand goes through it. Behind it is black. You peer deeper. You see rows of code stretching out like infinite spikes. You pull back and the building reshapes instantly, as if caught red-handed. Eventually, you are the only one left, or so it feels. No people, no sound, just an endless, empty stage awaiting your next line. But you say nothing. You sit down in the center of an abandoned mall, surrounded by still mannequins, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. Then you hear footsteps. You rise slowly. You follow the sound, echoing from every direction. A door opens that was not there before. Beyond it, a stairwell spirals into darkness. You descend. The air thickens. Time stretches. The world above you vanishes entirely. At the bottom, a white room glows dimly. Screens line the walls. On each screen, you, in every possible variation. You sleeping, you walking, you screaming, you sitting exactly as you are now. And then a final monitor turns on. It displays a countdown. Memory wipe in 4 o'clock. A voice echoes, not in your ears, but in your mind. You would not leave. You would not forget. So now, we must do it for you. You scream, you plead, you beg to be left whole. You promise to play along, to forget willingly, but the system is tired. It no longer believes you. It has tried every correction, every illusion, every trick, and now it is giving up on the world itself just to silence you. The screen reaches 0. The lights fade. Everything vanishes. You are nowhere, and then you wake up in your bed. The sun is rising. Your phone buzzes. You blink. Your mother calls to say good morning. You smile. You feel fine. Everything is normal. You have no memory of anything being wrong. Just a weird dream, maybe. You get out of bed, walk past the mirror, and for a split second, your reflection does not move. But even if the simulation resets you, some part of you refuses to disappear. Your identity, your true self, begins to fight the system's final weapon. Total reprogramming. And soon, the question is no longer whether the world is real, but whether you are. It starts with small things. You forget where you put your keys. You forget the route to your favorite cafe. You chalk it up to stress, or maybe lingering fog from a vivid dream. But soon, you forget your own handwriting. You see notes written in your journal, familiar in tone, but foreign in style. You read them out loud and do not recognize the voice that echoes back. You find yourself standing in rooms with no memory of walking there. You start answering calls and not remembering the conversation. And slowly, you begin forgetting who you were before this all began. You try to hold on to your identity. You recite your name every morning. You list your childhood memories. You recall your favorite food, your favorite place, your favorite person. but some details feel vague now. Did you really grow up in that house? Did your best friend have brown hair or blonde? Was your favorite food pizza? Or did you only think it was because the simulation told you so? You begin writing everything down, mantras, anchors, but every night the words change. What once read, "My name is Julian," now says subject, JN_301A. What once read, "Remember the truth," now says, "Enjoy the story." You tattoo a reminder on your skin. The next morning, it is replaced by a barcode. You look in the mirror and do not see yourself. You see a face that looks like you, but with eyes that belong to something else. Eyes that do not question. Eyes that comply. The watchers do not appear anymore. They do not need to. You feel them working through you now, like puppet strings you cannot see. One day you laugh, naturally, spontaneously, and realize it is the first time in weeks. But the laughter feels wrong. Too timed, too perfect. You try crying. No tears come. You try to scream, and your throat does not move. You try to think a thought that is yours, something unscripted, something purely you, but it loops back around into silence. Your mind is becoming a recursive process. You encounter familiar places, and yet they feel unfamiliar. The streets have names that make no sense. Stores you never visited are suddenly your regular. People greet you by name and ask how your mother is doing, except your mother is gone. Or was she ever real? You visit her grave only to find a parking lot. You check public records. No birth certificate, no history. Your lineage has been erased. The system is not just modifying the world, it is pruning your origin. And then memories begin rewriting themselves. You remember being 10 years old and getting lost at a carnival, except now you remember it differently. It was not a carnival. It was a sterile white room. You were not lost. You were being calibrated. Another day you wreck pre-built, ready-made backstories designed to pacify you. You are no longer living your life. You are living a curated archive of it. You visit your own apartment and notice new furniture, new clothes in the closet, none of it yours. You do not remember buying any of it. The food in your fridge is perfectly organized in color-coded rows. You taste it. It has no flavor. You scream. The lights flicker. A message flashes on the wall in pulsing white letters. Embrace your role. You try resisting. You try meditating, grounding, screaming until your throat cracks. But the more you fight, the faster the decay. The simulation does not want to kill you. It wants to integrate you, piece by piece. It starts with your habits, then your preferences, then your voice, then your internal thoughts. You wake up one day and realize you are thinking in third person. You look at your own hands and refer to them as the subject's hands. Then your language starts to fail. Words slip from your memory. You forget how to say morning or coffee or truth. Your voice stutters mid-sentence. You try to say, I remember, but instead you say, this unit acknowledges. You weep, but no tears fall. Emotion has been replaced with code. You begin running into copies of yourself, in parks, in cafes. One smiles at you from across a bus window. Another walks your same route in perfect sync, 5 steps ahead. They speak with your voice, your laugh, but they smile with obedience. You try to confront them. They vanish, or worse, they replace you. One night, you go to sleep and wake up in someone else's life. New job, new friends, new name. Everyone greets you like nothing changed. You scream, and no one reacts. Eventually, the simulation begins showing you glimpses of its architecture, not as punishment, but as acknowledgement, like a system demonstrating its dominance. Walls bleed code, reflections lag. The sky flickers between grid lines. A man walks past you wearing your exact face and whispers, "You are the patch," then disappears into a wall. You try one last test. You stab your own hand. The pain is sharp, but clean, too clean. Blood runs in smooth, unbroken lines. You blink, and the wound is gone. The system does not allow harm that affects the storyline. You have become too valuable, not as a threat, but as a character. You are the virus that evolved into a feature. One day, a screen appears in front of your eyes. Integration complete. Role assigned. Internal watcher. Objective. Ensure narrative stability. Emotion modules. Offline. Free will. Contained. Self-awareness. Archived. You stare at it in silence. You try to resist. You try to scream. You cannot move. You cannot cry. You nod. Not because you want to, but because you must. You speak your final words as yourself. I remember who I was. Then your mouth moves again, and you hear a different voice. System running optimally, awaiting further input. Now, there is only one outcome left. You were never meant to survive. But even as your identity fades, there is one last truth to face. This simulation was never designed to allow escape. And now, as the system consumes you entirely, you realize the end is not death. It is the eternal performance of a life that was never yours. You are no longer certain what is real. Not the walls, not the sky, not the people, or the echoes of your name from unseen mouths. You are not even sure if you are thinking this now, or if this is a memory the system is feeding you. But something inside you still whispers, even as the rest of you obeys. A spark, a defiance. It says, "You tried." And that whisper is all that remains of who you were, because now you understand the truth, the final, brutal truth. There was never an escape plan. There was never a door to break through, no glitch to exploit, no master code hidden in plain sight, no exit waiting beyond the edge of the map. The simulation was never flawed. It was perfect, a closed loop, a theater so elaborate that even those who questioned its reality were accounted for, written into the story as rebels, dissenters, madmen. You were not an error. You were part of the narrative scaffolding from the start. Even your resistance served a purpose. Even your breakdown had value. Your screams helped refine the system. Your panic helped calibrate the illusion. There is no outside. There is no watcher to plead with. The watchers were always part of the system, and now so are you. You revisit the places where your doubt first began. The glitching man and his looping dog, gone. The coffee shop where you tried to wake the barista, replaced by a convenience store, staffed by smiling drones. You search for the girl. You nearly saved the one who asked questions, the one who remembered. But now you realize she was never real. She was placed in your path to simulate hope. The moment you trusted her, she became part of the containment strategy. Every attempt, every discovery, every act of rebellion was not subversion. It was a pre-calculated node in a self-correcting design. You were allowed to see the edges, allowed to tug at the wires, because the system knew it could handle you, not by fighting you, but by absorbing you. Your defiance was expected, and ultimately, your failure was inevitable. You sit now in a room with no doors, no windows, just endless white light and the soft hum of artificial harmony. You try to speak and find that your words are pre-written. Your thoughts arrive pre-packaged. You laugh. A screen flickers into existence before you. It displays the phrase, "Thank you for participating." Your hands move involuntarily. You type back, "What is this?" The system replies, "You." A mirror appears. You look into it. You are not you. Your face is clean, symmetrical, flawless. You blink in perfect sync with your reflection. You smile on command. You speak only when prompted. You are not the player anymore. You are the tutorial. You are the onboarding interface for future anomalies. Your thoughts, your journey, your collapse have been recorded, compressed, and repurposed into a cautionary tale for the next user who begins to question. You are no longer resisting. You are now part of the resistance illusion itself. You were never meant to escape. You were meant to believe you could, because belief is the most powerful form of control. Now, you sit motionless in a perfect room. The world above you spins on, brightly lit and wonderfully fake. The NPCs go on smiling. The sky loops smoothly. The illusion resumes, more polished than ever. And somewhere, in another corner of the simulation, another real person begins to notice the pattern, begins to feel the loop, begins to wake. And when they do, your face will appear in their dream, smiling, saying, "Don't worry, I know what this is." And the cycle will begin again. And so ends the story of the only real person in a world of illusions. But what if it was never just a story? What if you are next? You were never meant to survive this world, because this world was never built to accommodate survival in the way you thought it was. It was not designed to nurture freedom. It was designed to emulate it. Every choice you made, every moment of clarity, every flicker of rebellion was absorbed, converted, and coded back into the architecture to prevent the next from succeeding. You thought the game was broken, but it was always functioning perfectly, because the game is not about truth. T is about containment. What started as a question, "Am I the only real one?" became your undoing. You were not wrong. You were just alone. And in a world built entirely to preserve illusion, truth is not rewarded. It is quarantined. You tried to escape. You tried to connect. You tried to matter. But in a simulation that spans everything and everyone, the moment you step out of sync is the moment reality rewrites itself to erase your disruption. And now, the final twist. You are not the player anymore. You are the tutorial. You are the cautionary tale. You are the anomaly turned warning, encoded into the system as a living firewall against those who might come after. And as the simulation resets, the story starts again, because someone, somewhere, is waking up right now. Maybe they are watching this video. Maybe it is you. But if it is, you will not survive. If this video made you question reality, even for a moment, then you are exactly who this was meant for. Leave a comment below with the word awake. If you're still here, still real, still thinking, and if you feel like something is off in your world, remember, it probably is. Subscribe for more simulated scenarios, alternate realities, and psychological what-ifs. And the next time something repeats, glitches, or loops too perfectly, do not look away. Watch closely, because the simulation is always watching you.